Okay, so take a look at this circuit. All right, you've seen something like this before. You've built one probably in the first part of the school year. I've got 8 resistors. I've got 8 LEDs. They're all wired into the board in perfect sequence. This is pin 0. This is pin 7. Everything works just beautiful, right? Simple and clean. The lights flashing up and down. Let me pause this and switch my camera around. Okay, and if you look at the code, it's very clean, right? I go from pin 0 to pin less than 8, so pin 7. I go up by 1, and I set it to output. And then down here in the demo 1 function, you can see that I do nothing more than simply go from pin 0 to pin 7 up by 1. I turn it on for 100 milliseconds, and then I turn it off. Okay? Absolutely gorgeous. And the reason this works is because I've got them hooked up in sequence, right? So if I have it hooked up to pin 0 to pin 7, it's just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It couldn't get any easier, okay? Nice and clean. 0 through 7, 0 through 7, 0 through 7, 0 through 7. All right. Well, let's say, for example, I can't use pins 0 through 7. Let's say, for example, some of these pins are busy doing something else. Or perhaps more important, some of these pins, like for example these down here and these over here, have a particular function, okay? And if I need to use these pins, right, and if I'm looking for these PWM pins, well, that means 7 and 8 don't work. So I won't be able to do something simple and clean like this, where I just go between 0 and 8. I'll have to come up with some kind of a scheme that skips some of these particular pins. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to replace essentially this, or this whole, this code right here with something that essentially does the same thing, but I don't have to go in sequence. Okay? So let me pause this and build a little something called an array, and I'll show you what I mean. So give me a moment. Okay, so take a look at what I've done here. You can see that I've arranged the wiring quite a bit. All right? So for these first several, I actually skipped every other pin. All right? Then I skipped a couple of pins down here. Not only that, I flipped. So this is now hooked up to pin 17, and this is hooked up to pin 14. Okay? So I've arranged the pins different than it was originally. It's no longer between 0 and 7. And I've even flipped the sequence around. Okay? But it's still going up and down just fine. Now let me show you what I did with code. Hold on one second. Let's look at the flashing part first very quickly. It looks really similar. The only difference is now I have this variable here. And I've put I, okay, inside of a square bracket, okay, which we didn't have before. So what did I do? All right, I created an array variable. And right here it is. It starts out pretty much the same as any other variable. I want an integer, okay, so I declare it as an integer. I still have to give it a name, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but what we need to do is we need to give it some number of elements, okay, and how to contain it and how to hold it. In this case, I'm being very specific. I'm saying that this array has exactly 8 elements, all right? What are they? Well, they are 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 17, and 14. Those are the pins that I'm currently hooked up to. So I'm hooked up to pins 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then 17 and 14. Okay? So I've rearranged the order. But yet this looks identical as it did before. I'm going between 0 and 7. Okay? But this is now actually calling the variable. Okay? These are called index values or indexes. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, oh, what I really want you to do first time around when I is equal to 0, I'd like you to take the 0th place value, which is a 0 in this case, and let make 0 an output. Then I goes up to 1. Well, I want you to take the 1's place index value, which is a 2, and I want you to do 2 to an output. Then I want to go do the 3, the 3rd index position, and I want to make it an output, and then the 4th index position, all the way up until I actually go through the odd sequence here of 17 and 14. So I have the same code, it's just that it's calling a very customized series of numbers. And this is going to be very handy when we build all kinds of various lighting displays and whatever else. We can choose the pins because pins sometimes are in odd arrangements. And if I want to light 8 of them up, all right, I might have to arrange the sequence to which they are plugged in. And I can still do all these handy tricks in coding as long as I define the pins, the variable, as an array, and I can choose any sequence in here that I want to do. Okay, so let me pause this and show you how this would be handy. Hold on a moment. Okay, so let's say, for example, I want to dim this light, like you see it happening right here. It's getting, well, the camera doesn't do it justice, but it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, and then it turns off, and the process repeats itself again. Okay, so I've got this light dimming, or brightening, I should say. So give me a moment here. Okay, and I can do that because this is a PWM pin, all right, which is pin 3, which is the very first pin that I just hooked up. Okay, that's the one you just saw dimming. And if you look at my code, you can see that what I did is I changed the very first value here to a pin 3. So that's the very first value. That's index position 0 of this array. Going down here to my code, you can see what I've done. I've created a loop, all right, and I go from 0 to 255, which is the brightest you can get with a PWM pin, and I analog write to the index position of this variable, the index position 0, which is pin 3, which is 0, okay, and I make it brighter and brighter and brighter. So I go from 0 to 255, up and up and up. Once it's done that and it's reached 256, it sets it back down to 0, and the process repeats. Okay, so if I wanted to do that with 8 different pins, I would have to choose pins 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's 4 of them. 9 and 10, and then probably 2 more from up here. So let me go ahead and build that, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, and you can see that I was successful. I have all these pins getting brighter and brighter, and then turning off. And the wiring is all over the place, and yet the sequence works perfectly. So let me pause it. Okay, so to do what I did, I had to hook it up to all these PWM pins, these 2 PWM pins, and then I chose these 2 PWM pins way out here, 22 and 23. And in code, you can see that I chose 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 23, and 22. All right, so those, and these 2. I put them all inside my array in a nice sequence. So that's index position 0, that's index position 7. And then down here, all I did was copy and paste this over and over again. And you can see that it started off first by influencing pin 0, then index position 1, and index position 2, index positions 3, and as it did so, it went through these variables just in that sequence, And of course that corresponded to these pins. And that allowed me to dim these LEDs. Okay? So the beautiful thing about an array is it does allow you to set up your custom configurations of your variable, and it still allows you to take advantage of some shortcuts which make your life a lot easier, and it just organizes everything in a nice, concise way. And see, it even allowed me to invert or flip the sequence of the pins. It doesn't care. All it cares about is whether or not you have it in the right index position, and then it scrolls through that position. So hopefully this introduction into array is useful, and as usual, I will see you again really soon.